The minute 30 to go, and now they hold a favored position. We're not going to have it. Take all three. Game here is to get up to full speed. KR makes his move first, and he'll be going faster when the gun goes off. Go down below the line. 20. 17. 14. 13. 4, 3, 2, 1, gun! Another clean start and another good job by Dylan Bob.
Wow. Wow, there I am. I guess I got it going on. Let's see. I seem to have a bit of a problem with my own stuff. Hey everybody, how you doing tonight? Yeah, I'm here. Made it through another day. Ember was like super kind and helped me out a lot by maybe getting some folks to be aware of my vehicle situation. I've got a little bit of an update in that regard. I spent some time today. I figured out that there was a relay that was kind of rotten, that was stopping things from getting the engine to start in this Ford C-Max 2017. Ford C-Max Energy 2017. Thing about electric cars, there are a lot of fuses. There are a lot of relays, and they're all over the place in the Ford C-Max 2017. There's one under the hood that, of course, is very difficult to snap the cover open for, and there's one under the glove compartment that is, of course, very difficult to see or access, and there's one back in the quote-unquote luggage compartment, the back on the driver's side, with a little tiny door that you can just barely wriggle your hand through. So I went through all the fuses, and there are relays in all of those places, and they're really difficult to pop out, and they're really kind of difficult to deal with. But I did test one, and it didn't seem to be doing the click 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 thing when you put a charge across, and across the positive and negative. You put 12 volts, it's supposed to make a connection, and then there's supposed to go from infinite resistance to no resistance or very little resistance. Well, one of them seems a little bit funky, so I replaced one of those things, but Jesus Christ, it takes forever. I kind of wish I'm longing for the days of my 1964 Rambler Flathead 6, which didn't have much of nothing in terms of them things. Few fuses here and there, but turn the thing and it goes. So anyway, I'm here. I don't see as anybody else is here. As I said, Amber did a really great stream. There's a cage match between a couple of Christian pastors, one of whom thought the earth was flat, the other of whom considered the earth to be round. And it's like, in medieval times, theologians would debate perhaps the number of angels who could dance on the head of a pin, perhaps the number of angels that were actually in the chorus line, ready to kick it up and dance on the head of a pin, perhaps the shape of the pinhead that they were dancing on. But these two guys were just hurling Bible verses at each other. It's like one's round, one's not, one's this, one's that. It's like, come on, people. Really? And within your, I got to step up and ask, and within your theology, what is the point? Does it matter? Does that question really matter when it comes to salvation? And does salvation really matter when it comes to how to live? I get pretty frustrated with this stuff. It's amusing. And then we're over on was listening to Mark Reed, had an ongoing thing, breaking down this pastor, small channel, got up like 150 some odd subbies, who decided to set his ass up in front of in front of a table at what looked like a college campus, like a sort of informal thing, like you had a fraternity over here. And then he set himself up in front of a secular students alliance thing at some campus in, I think, Texas. And the guy brought along his little PA system, and the students were basically doing a great job. He was doing a great job of attracting a crowd for the students. But he was going on preaching the gospel. God bless him. He's, such a great guy going that way. But he's bringing the word of the Lord. And there are two things about that are encouraging to me. One, that the Secular Student Alliance is there, that they're getting a whole bunch of people, that, this guy's agitation is bringing attention to their table, which I suppose is a good thing. This guy's being engaging in he's calling attention to himself. He's being a Delta Bravo. The other thing, though, is that his ministry is effective enough that it's gotten a hold or energized a fair number of people in the States. I mean, I understand Mark's in Australia. He doesn't know American politics, but, it ain't funny in Georgia. Or, I'm sorry, it ain't funny in Florida. It ain't funny in Texas. It ain't funny. These guys are controlling state governments and making the lives of those kids. It ain't funny in Texas. I believe this was a school in Texas. Wouldn't surprise me what Ken Paxton comes down on the Students Association at whatever school it was in Texas, and falls them out somehow. It's pretty scary to me. So anyway, so it gets me to thinking. In a situation where we've got guys like this pastor, doing the thing, free speech. He's out there, but he sets himself up directly in front of a table of kids talking about secular humanism. The table is draped with a pride flag, and this guy's just there railing on and on and on. He knows he's going to get a crowd by being essentially a dick. But that's the attack. That's the way that seems to be the method. Find something, particularly if it's LGBTQ associated, plant yourself in front of it. Plant yourself in front of something that's not white, cishet. Plant yourself in front of that and be the standing for God. As if there aren't people in the queer community standing for God. This is a thing that's curious to me. It's like the people who are who are going for political power are not. They proclaim their Christianity, but it's not the Christianity that's important to them. What's important to them? Oh, look, there's a plane landing in Portland, Maine. How about that? It's not the Christianity that's important to them. It's the opposition to gay people. It's the opposition to secular humanism. It's the opposition To Kill a Mockingbird. It's the opposition to books. It's the opposition to the Enlightenment. It's the opposition to the very foundations of what this country was founded on. The leaders of the 13 colonies got together. Puritan, Massachusetts Bay. Free-thinking Rhode Island and Providence plantations, which by the name was the name of the state until a couple of years ago when they decided to just give it up because everybody called it Rhode Island anyway. But the name of the state was the longest state name in the United States for years and years and years. It's the state of Rhode Island and Providence plantations. Rhode Island is Aquidneck Island, and Connecticut Island, aka Jamestown Island. The rest of the state was Providence plantations, and one of my ancestors was an early settler there, shall we say, like in 1687. But anyway, I got distracted. I distracted myself. Puritan Massachusetts, separatist or free-thinking Rhode Island, Anglican Connecticut, Anglican New York, Quaker Pennsylvania. Who knows about New Jersey? Whoever knew about New Jersey? Uh, Anglican. I'm sorry, forgot the Catholics. Jeez, Catholic Maryland, Anglican Virginia. Kind of a strange admixture of religious flavors in North and South Carolina and Methodist, and then Methodist Georgia. They all realized that what was going to be good for a nation in the 18th century wasn't going to be one that was based upon religious faith. But one that was based upon religious tolerance and tolerance of belief. That wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for the United States of America after they declared independence from the Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and France. Actually, at the time, George III still bore the French bit, tied to a tradition, tied to the old Christian tradition, the old Catholic tradition of divine right of kings, etc., and so forth. The people that founded, the people that drew together the 13 colonies of disparate religious traditions, some of which were actually founded in establishment of religion, particularly the Mass Bay colony, particularly the Virginia colony, particularly the Maryland colony. Lord Baltimore was a Catholic, was explicitly founded as a Catholic colony. These people, after 100 years, people don't realize these places were settled in the early 17th century, in the 1600s, before the American War of Independence, before the Revolution. There was 115 years of tradition, of history. Like 115 years. Let's think about that from where we sit right now. 115 years back. Well, that's 1923. We're talking World War I. How many of us have a through line of that? I mean, it's longer than a human lifetime, but it's within the memory of many of us. But it was literally within the memory of the generation of the people that were writing the Constitution, to remember, if not their generation, the one prior, the English Civil War. The danger of religion to democracy, the peril that it posed to a democratic state, to the liberties of the citizenry of all of the United States, were a peril that every single one of those people understood. And that is why Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion or the free exercise thereof. That's the Establishment Clause. They wanted to keep government out of people's religious beliefs, and they wanted to assure that people could practice those beliefs without the interference of government. Now, this cretin that was I'm going to be pejorative. This cretin that was preaching on the stream that I was watching on Mark's channel is fundamentally opposed to that. He's like, well, this is a Christian country and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, primarily it was. I mean, there wasn't, sure there were deists. I'm not one of these people that are going to say, well, they were all deists. They didn't believe. No, that's garbage. There are plenty of solid Quakers. John Adams was not a deist. But he was a devout Congregationalist. He came out of that tradition. Washington was an Anglican. Jefferson was probably more the most deist kind of guy. But these people were all, they were all basically trying to work this stuff out. But anyway, this cretin was, preaching in front of these kids. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. My redirect is on, and I'm subscribed to Mark's channel. He should have been able to redirect here. I don't understand that. I've been in the community tab, and I thought I had it set up, but I don't know. Maybe you have to be big enough. I don't know how YouTube works. YouTube is just, it does what it does. By the way, this is a little opening rant. I'm glad to see all you guys here. Holy shit! I was yakking on for a while. I think I've got the a link pinned in chat. If I don't, I'll put it up there anyway. But yeah, anyway, I'm going on historically about the United States. Just I do get frustrated sometimes in listening to folks, as we say in Maine, from away talking about U.S. politics, because I do think that it's lost on a number of people how successful these people are in perverting the reason we have a First Amendment. The reason we have it is not because we had a bunch of godless heathens that founded the country, or because they were all devoted to God, but they realized the strife and contention that religion brings to a polity. And the focus that the founders of this country had was the construction of a polity. Before the United States adopted, in the middle of the Red Scares of the 1950s, adopted the motto "In God We Trust" and put that on the currency, I am in fact old enough to remember when that wasn't on the currency, and what was on the currency was "E pluribus unum," which is out of many one. And that was the through thread for all of these United States, that we are diverse. We started diverse. We had a diversity of religious beliefs, diversity of peoples. Sometimes grudgingly admitted, and sometimes forcibly enslaved. This has never been a perfect nation. But one of the keystones of the ability to perfect a polity was the recognition that it can't be led by God. It has to be led by consensus, out of many, one. That the polity, that the possibility of constructing a political system not dependent upon a monarch whose authority came from God. Now remember, these are Englishmen, and I say Englishmen advisedly, Englishmen who remembered that Charles I had his head chopped off in a religious dispute. They didn't remember it personally, but it was within their grandparents' lifetimes. Grandparents, great-grandparents' lifetimes. Again, my eighth great-grandfather arrived on these shores, arrived in Boston in 1637. Before the English Civil Wars. And what was on the mind of the people that settled this country was that kind of religious disputation. And it's unbelievable to me that this is exactly what people want to lead us back towards. This kind of kingship thing is like everybody looking for the anointed one. Everybody thought when the whole thing about the White Horse prophecy with the Mormons, and Romney's going to be the great leader, which Romney himself even just sort of said, well, that's kind of bullshit. And the number of people running around thinking Donald J. Trump, of all people on earth, is the second coming of Christ. And it's like, come on. This is so antithetical to the design of the conscious design of the people that framed the Constitution, that fought the War of Independence, that were. It's just completely antithetical to the kind of thinking that went on there, and it wasn't because they were less than godly men. They just didn't agree on this God thing. And as Ember demonstrated in his stream earlier tonight, you can't get one Christian pastor and another to agree on Bible. One of them tosses the mic over and the other one bats it away and says, you don't know your Bible. And it's like, hey, let's have a big fucking war over it. We don't need to have wars over the composition of the angelic chorus line headed for the stage of the pinhead. We don't. And it wasn't just atheists that came to this conclusion. It was all of us. And what has happened, there's always been in American history awakenings and blah, blah, blah. And pastors will go out, and it's like the burnt over district in upstate New York, where some of my ancestors actually lived. So with polyglot people, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, northern Vermont, upstate New York, Iowa, Oregon, back to Boston. It's like we've been all over the place, but and I know that because my cousin sort of researched all of that stuff. But there's been a constant thread of revival in American religious tradition through the the more civilized precincts of Emerson and Thoreau, and the more uproarious ones of earlier times of Jonathan Edwards, which was the first Great Awakening in the United States, and then the Methodist Circuit writers of going through the burnt over district in New York, and the people in Georgia and stuff. There's always been religious fervor in one way or another. Rarely has it been as united to political action as it is today, and as it was in some of the more dire and tragic eras of American politics. That guy who was standing in front of those kids, he wasn't there for God. He was there against the gays. I made a comment in Mark's stream that, it's like the guy made some offhand remark about Barack Obama, and I said, yeah, but Mark, don't you realize Barack Obama is black, a black man? And Mark goes, oh, well, I don't want to question the guy's motivation. Well, you fucking well should. In the context of American history, you fucking well need to. In the context of contemporary American history, you fucking well need to recognize that the pushback against Black Lives Matter, the pushback against gay people, the pushback against all of these things, these are matters of substance that are being written into law. These are also matters of humor. I mean, God bless Mel Brooks. God bless Billy Wilder. Some like it hot. God bless the people that make light of people who take themselves too seriously and poke fun at the absurdities of prejudice and such. These are the kinds of things that any society needs. But you know who those things are most funny toward? I mean, the people that find those things the most funny are the people that are the most oppressed. I mean, if you look at the History of the World Part 1, the Inquisition, it's Mel Brooks laughing at the Inquisition that resulted in the Jews being kicked out of Spain. Look at Fiddler on the Roof, which was about a pogrom. It was a musical comedy about a genocide. That Jewish humor, if you could say it that way. I mean, I went to Brandeis. We actually studied it, and we laughed about it. But it's fucking tragic. That humor helps you get through life. But the humor doesn't carry you through, I don't think, through recognizing the danger that you can't laugh it away. You just can't. You can't laugh this stuff away. And I do want to laugh. I do. I don't want to be, the beating on the fences the entire time. But there needs to be a balance. And you do need to recognize the threat of guys, of the people whose mission it is not to spread the gospel of Christ, but to spread the language of hatred and oppression under the banner of Christ. I mean, many people say, people create their own gods. They create they build up the edifice. They build up the Holy Kingdom, and yeah, well, kind of, sort of how it works. I'm kind of reaching out and hoping that, I'd like to have that discussion with people I've gotten frustrated with over time, because I want people to understand that it's yes, you need to laugh. Yes, there's Blazing Saddles. Yes, there's the History of the World Part 1. Yes, there's all of these things, but there's also Selma and Birmingham and Stonewall and DC Mob and all of these things that are done with joy and humor and celebration and song. I mean, the songs of the Civil Rights era are part of my youth. It's the songs of sexual freedom and a new the new possibilities of human expression that came from the pill, the possibility of for women not to be enslaved by having zero control over their reproductive destiny. That was profound shit. And it didn't happen until the early 60s. The birth control pill was a big fucking deal. In terms of the possibilities of half the human race, all of a sudden you're not beholden to some vagaries. You can make choices for your own life, about your own body, about your own ability to control when and where and how and with whom you're going to reproduce. That's profound. That's a profound social change. Songs of that, those stories of that are big. And the humor of that is also big. So it's not like we don't laugh. But we also need to act. We also need to turn that into, you can't just sit back and laugh at it because you don't want to be the person that doesn't have the last laugh. And I guarantee you that Mike Johnson is determined to have the last laugh. Anyway, I've been rambling for quite some time, and I don't know if I've made any sense or if it's blah, 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 or if anybody's even still watching. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I haven't been paying sufficient attention. It looked to me like the chat had been flat for a while. Let's see. Anybody there? Is there anybody there? Is there anybody there? It says here. What's really weird is my mic doesn't seem to be. Have you guys even been hearing me the entire time? Ah, okay. I just had my I had my mic turned, my actual thing turned down, so it's all good. Anyway, I believe the link, if anybody wants to join in, it's now that I've turned up the microphone, I can hear myself echoing. Oh God. Yeah. All right. So now I've got YouTube muted. So. I'm gonna I'll throw the link in again. I thought I pinned it, but maybe I didn't. I don't know what's going on. Anybody wants to come in and talk about these things or go on for a tick? Here. I'd love to talk to Mark about this because I'm not sure. I think we could be on the same page at some point, but maybe it's I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm talking at cross purposes with folks. And sometimes it's a question of, well, I agree with you, but I have a hard time seeing what you do. It's like, okay. This is my one cigarette for the day here. They cost too much. Yeah, so I did go over I've managed to get the car started after chasing stuff down. I've spent way too much time except it was time that needed to be spent because I, quite honestly, need some place to sleep, and that's where I sleep. I sleep in my car. I need to have a little bit of flexibility. I mean, I've got the studio and stuff, but I can't sleep in this space because insurance doesn't like that stuff. The police don't like that stuff. So I just sort of go outside and sleep in the vehicle. It's been that way for like 3 years. Yeah. I've always been a bit of a gypsy in the palace. But yeah, I mean, I think the focus needs to be okay. It's like looking at the stream that Mark did. I think the focus needs to be on the people that were challenging that guy. Not just the people that were laughing at him. Laughter is not enough. But later on in the stream, at the end of that, just before I started this thing, there was a young lady who was in the crowd who challenged the guy and pushed back on the guy. And that's key. There needs to be pushback. And not just from afar. It needs to be up close and personal. It needs to be in my case, go to Augusta and push back. Write your congressman, write your state legislator, show up at your school board meeting, and do the things, because that guy shows up at a fucking student thing with a frickin' PA system to harangue the crowd and harass these kids who are trying to push for a better world. And he's looking for a confrontation. He is looking for people to make a big deal out of this stuff. And so he can sit there and go, I'm a persecuted Christian. I mean, who was it? An ideological warrior, Steve Bannon, likes to quote Saul Alinsky, who was a strategist and a tactician, a famous tactician of the left in the 1960s. The techniques of radical resistance. These are the strategies that they're adopting today. Except who's leading them? You got billionaires saying, "Oh, I'm so persecuted." Christians, "Oh, I'm so persecuted." No, you're fucking not. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is one of the largest landowners in the States. It's got tons of money. RC Church, over centuries. Are, like, they made an alliance with the powerful. Where do you think the divine right of kings came from? To this day, Charles, by the grace of God, King of England, of the United Kingdom of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. By the grace of God, head of the Church of England. We don't have that. The very first polity in the world that declared freedom of religion, freedom from religion, freedom from religious compulsion, was Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson's colony of Providence Plantations. And Anne Hutchinson was a fellow congregant of, I think it was George, forget his name. Got it here. Gotta look it up. Fellow congregant of Pastor George Christopher. Got it here. I was having a talk with Jay about the fact that I have my written down he was ninth great. Christopher Elm was my 8th great. Reverend John Wheelwright. Anne Hutchinson was one of the parishioners, and you can Google these people and find out who they are, and it's like, yeah, these were nonconformists. They got kicked out of Massachusetts because Massachusetts was a theocratic state. That Massachusetts Bay Colony was a theocratic state established by the Puritans. Puritans couldn't stand them. Anne Hutchinson lands in Boston. She gets ejected, and it's like, okay, you get the fuck out of here. Wheelwright goes to New Hampshire, founds Exeter, New Hampshire, along with my 8th great grandfather. And then he moves to Rhode Island or Providence Plantations at the time. Didn't move to Rhode Island. He was in North Kingstown, across the bay. These people were, this was unusual in the history of the world. Where the sovereign was not the sovereign wielding the power of God, but the sovereign to whom one owed a duty as towards the state, but not towards God. And I'm very much afraid that the impulse toward the reestablishment of that idea is an idea that has political force in the United States in the current age. I mean, if you listen to the declarations and the speeches of the current Speaker of the House, that's exactly where he's at. That man, if the president and the vice president disappear, that man is the president of the United States. So while his ideas are something to laugh at, they're not something to laugh at. Because if they gain political power to match their theocratic mindset, we are fucked. We are fucked. And it is going to take a good deal to dislodge them from power. A good deal more to dislodge them from power once achieved than it will be to keep them from achieving that power. It's going to be far more difficult to get them out of power than it will be to keep them from achieving power. I guess what I'm doing right now is begging you, don't let them have it. Don't let them have it. Let's talk about how to keep them out of power. Let's talk about the best way of doing that. Let's talk about good approaches. Let's strategize. Let's be as smart as they are. Let's figure out ways. Within the turmoil of our own lives, which is hard enough. It's hard enough to move beyond. I got to buy kerosene. I got to fix my car. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do the other thing. Yeah. But we got to vote. We also got to encourage other people to do so. And we've got to encourage other people to realize that this is not a joke. We can laugh at it, but it's not a joke. We need to laugh at it. Emma Goldman, of course, famously said, if I can't dance, I don't need your revolution. You know? Got to dance. You got to laugh. You got to laugh. You got to have fun. Got to have fun. I know I get too serious, but I hope those of you know and love me realize I like to have fun. You know, in real life, I sell with a lot of people who are very conservative people, but I try to at least move the conversation to what does this mean? And usually with I haven't had a good deal. I haven't had a lot of interactions with religious conservatives, but secular conservative folks, rich motherfuckers that are donating to causes that will actually physically harm me. I've had some influence with those people to say, hey, consider what this policy will do to me, your friend. Consider that. And please advocate against it. Can't ask for more than that from people. You can't ask people to completely shift their perspective. But you can ask them to think about the consequences of of policies that would define me out of existence. Even that's a bridge too far for most. And, that's what changes people's minds. Being there and having those conversations. Yeah, pragmatic first local elections matter a lot more than you think, because that's where state elections come from. I mean, my local being parsimonious with my one cigarette. My local town councilor rose to be Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Maine State House, and became the United States candidate for the United States Senate against Susan Collins. She was a political opponent of mine, actually, because she didn't listen. You can't always count. You can't always count on on people that put on a certain cloak as being your friends. But yeah, somebody gets a position of power, they can roll on it, and if they're of a certain bent and a certain mindset, it'll be for their own benefit, not for anybody else's. Pick your battles and pick your people. Get good people into good places. I mean, the books that are getting burned or the books that are getting banned at the local level. They're not getting banned at the state level, really, except in Florida. But the way it's getting banned in Florida is because these people are taking over the local school committees and the local libraries and all of this, which is another topic. You can think of Andrew Carnegie, whose family immigrated to the United States, and he worked in the mills and grew up a smart kid, industrious and all of this stuff, made a fucking fortune in the steel industry, sold it to J.P. Morgan, and then went on to establish libraries all over the goddamn country. So founded Carnegie Mellon University in New York. Really believed in the power of education and the power of self-education. That's why the libraries are a big deal for Andrew Mellon. Compare and contrast with Elon Musk. Keep the people ignorant. It's like, so where do people's interests lie? Is it for the future, or is it for their own self-aggrandizement and for their own accumulation of power? And to the extent that people say, well, both parties do it and all of this, it's like, yeah, but you do have to look at what individuals involved, because it's not parties that run governments, it's people that do. You pick the wrong people, people make affiliations, people make political alliances for their own benefit. And the question is whether, is their understanding of what is beneficial to them and their posterity solely concerned with themselves and their literal posterity, or is it more or is it concerned with the uh, uh, the lessons they've learned from the broader world? Do they consider um, uh, do they consider Lucy Stone and Susan B. Anthony and Sojourner Truth and uh, 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 and great philosophers of history, Emerson, Thoreau, and Louise May Alcott, and all of these people? Do they see that as their heritage, or do they just simply see their own personal heritage as being the most central thing to a future? And I'd posit that in a world of 8 billion people and growing, our community needs to be broader than our parochial interests. We really deeply need to care about Africa. We really deeply need to care about people who ain't getting on the goddamn internet. We need to deeply care about their voices, and we really deeply need to care about lifting them up. And we really deeply need to care about pushing back against the interests that want to silence those voices. We really do. So unless somebody pops up here, I've been going for 1 hour and 7 minutes on a big long monologue, and hope I haven't offended anybody too much. Guess I don't mind if I did. I'm not slapping it at folk. I have done in the past, and for that I regret that. I really do. I get frustrated. I'm just old. I do a bit of too much. You kids get off my lawn, and I really should stop doing that. It's a failing of mine. But it does get old. It does get old. There was a guy who called into, this guy Kevin called into Takis today, and I'm sitting there monitoring the chat. He's just going on and on. His argument was, well, it's always a thing, particularly the trans issue. It's always something. And so I really, the people who are trying to be allies and stuff, it's like, well, trans women are women, trans men are men, except here. Altogether too frequently, and the except part, particularly for trans women, is something I care deeply about because trophies, because sport, it's like, altogether, it's like trans women until they want to compete. It's like, do you not see that is a problem? Because if you accept people as people, then you need to accept them in participation in every aspect of human endeavor. that includes sports. I know people don't care about sports that much, or some people will say they don't, but you know what? When when they get caught up in that fervor, it's one of those things, So people will tie themselves in knots. Well, anyway, this guy Kevin calls in, and he's like, "Well, I kind of," and he took it even further. It's like, well, I really don't see a problem with trans women in sports, blah 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 blah, until it gets to my sport, which is uh, 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 you know. Martial arts of some nature or another, and I've got a friend Natalie who's in MMA or in a Thai form of martial arts, and it's like, Jesus Christ. At which point, all the arguments come bubbling up about, well, it's obvious to anyone that men are better than women at blah 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 blah. That's the way the argument begins, and it's like it's funny that the argument never rises up until it gets to that point where trans women are cool competing against women until I think they're men, at which point I don't think it's fair because men are better than in this particular endeavor. Philosophically, I think that's where there's a disjunction because, guys, I hate to tell you, but you're not. You're not as good as you think you are. It's just not. You're just not. You can just let that fucking shit go. And it really isn't about, you're telling on yourself when you get to that point, when it's like trans women are women until you get here, and then they're men. And it's not fair for them to be competing against women because where's the distinction? Well, how do you come up with that distinction? I don't understand. Well, it's the blah 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 blah. No, you're not. You're bringing that in at the last minute. You're bringing that shit in at the last minute because at the end of the day, it is a challenge to your perception. This is why I've done this. I did a tip on Woodford, who's still on that tip. It's like, well, he's trying so hard to say gender and sex are two distinct things, and the reason that they need to be two distinct things is because at the end of the day, when it comes to sport, I can determine that trans women as gender can be excluded from sport because they are not women by sex. It's a bit of sophistry. It's a bit of a game. And it's weird. And a lot of people don't understand, I've done videos and videos. I go on about this shit all the time. But it's funny, it's this one call. It's like, I'm on blah, blah, blah. So I did the thing in the chat, and I'm just like, okay, start here. You read the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport, 160 pages with footnotes and all of this. Read that. Start there. Read what the IOC had to say about it. Read this study. Blah blah blah. I mean, on stream. He got handled rather brutally because he was trying to mansplain to Arden and the guest, whose name escapes me at the moment because senior moment, and it's old and I'm tired. No, I'm old and it's tired. No, I don't know. It's kind of like a day to day. Like, what the fuck? This shit again? Hard to believe. Hard to believe. Just hard to believe. Okay, kids. Unless somebody wants to jump in here, I'm pretty much done for the evening. I appreciate your coming. I'm kind of begging for somebody to come in and shoot the shit, but it says I got 14 people watching. None of you sons of guns want to come in here and yak at me. That's okay. It's 12:30. It's good enough. I love you all. I thank you so much for your support. Again, my car, I got it going. I love it. It's taken tons of time out of my life, which is taken away from other endeavors that actually could bring money in. But it's moving in a positive direction, thanks in large part to you're all keeping me going through this bullshit. I don't know what else is going on the YouTubes at the moment that might be cool. I don't know. Well, it is latest time. We got Ozzy. I guess Janice got the COVID, which kind of sucks. We got Ozzy going on, as far as I can tell. I can't rate anybody. You know, if you tell all your friends to subscribe to my channel and stuff. Oh, yeah. Massive, huge, enormous props to Ember for being so kind. Massive, huge props to Ember for being so kind as to do that stream, which was really quite entertaining. A couple of Christians going at each other as if it's only goes to show, you know, just only goes to show. How can you trust these guys are going to go at it hammer and tongs? How are we gonna about nonsense, whether the fucking earth is round or not? How are we gonna make progress? Please be good. Please be kind. Please think about the future. Please think about the past. I mean, William Faulkner, the great Mississippian, I think he's Mississippian or in Alabama. Said, and I think he's right, the past is never dead. It's not even past. That's why I urge you to think about what, the origins of the Constitution, the origins of the Declaration of Independence, what those guys were thinking of, the shit that happened the 1660s to 100 years in their past. There was a civil war in England. This is what they were thinking of. And it was all about religion. And I'm thinking from my perspective of, 70 years of 70 years of life, and a certain amount of that of awareness, a fair amount of that of awareness. It was 90 years ago, this past May 6th, that the Hitler Youth stormed into the library of the Institute for Sexual Research in Berlin, hauled all the books out of the library, and burned them in the street. When I see that kind of shit going on, it's like, hello. And within 130 years, person famous in German literature, whose name I can't remember at the moment, said, those who burn books will burn people. So we need to have fun. We need to dance. We need to enjoy life. But we also need to be serious, because shit can get terribly real. Next stream, I promise I'm going to do Tim Lin. I'm going to do English ballads, I think, or something along those lines. Because I think that's fun. It's stories. This was a stream about stories too. But the elephant's in the room too. Good night, everybody. I appreciate you all. And I'm going to play this lovely thing and go bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. Got to figure out where the hell the thing is. Got to figure out where to push the button. Where do I push the button? Oh, do I push the button here? I don't know. I gotta get a little bit better at this, but I'm getting better at it. Slowly but surely.